Hey all, Sean here. Game on cards and collectibles. Today I have a PSA reveal of the 1960s variety. Received back my 11 card PSA sub. This was a special that they ran a few months ago, maybe September, I believe it was, and it did take about 3 months to get this back, so a little bit longer, but I know vintage, just from past experiences, that vintage does take a little bit longer. Anything prior to 1980s or so, that causes the the cards to come back a little bit slower than normal in your modern and ultra modern cards. Now this sub is mostly comprised of baseball and football, and I'm not expecting any gems here today. Definitely, these are cards that I had laying around that I thought were a good idea to have slabbed up, not necessarily looking for a high ROI or anything like that on this type of sub. These are cards that are probably in the mid-grade somewhere, hopefully collector grade, so just some background. Collector grade typically means cards from the 1950s, you want in a grade 5 or higher. 1960s, you want 6 or higher. 7, 1970s, 7 or higher. So that's kind of the idea here, is hopefully getting a few cards that are in the collector grade, and then just having some cards that I like to have in my collection slabbed up, authenticated, and graded. So first up today, we're going to have a 1965 Chicago Bears team card from the Philadelphia set. Have no idea. The centering is obviously pretty bad on the back here. You can see from left to right. Just kind of hoping for a mid-grade, maybe something a little higher than that. Just a nice card to have in the collection. And it comes back a near mint 7. That's great. Actually better than I thought. Card that I picked up earlier this year. Kind of thinking about collecting all the team sets for the Bears throughout the, the 1950s, late 50s through the 70s. Still not sure on that yet, but that's a good start if I'm going to go for it. All right, next up, looks like we have the 1964 Topps Cubs team card. Again, picked this one up earlier this year, hoping for a mid-grade. Definitely has some issues on the corners, both front and back. And it comes back a PSA 6. Okay. Again, like we're talking about the collector grade or higher, so I'll take a 6 on that. I love how the red background kind of blends well with the PSA red label. The red and white all over that card looks pretty sharp. All right, and then next up we have the 1967 Topps Chicago Cubs team card. I think I picked this one up in the same lot. This one looks pretty good. If the other one got a 6, I'm kind of hoping that this one will also get a 6. And it comes back excellent. An X-Mint PSA 6. Don't like this photo quite as much as the 1964. It's kind of set back in the further distant. Maybe like a more of a zoom out, and the yellow. It's definitely a different time back then for cards, but glad to have it. Next up, we have the 1964 Topps National League RBI leaders. That's the Hank Aaron is on this card featured. So obviously got some centering issues. Definitely has some corner and edge wear. So again, hoping for a mid-grade here. And let's see what we get. Comes back a very good, excellent 4. So PSA 4 on that one. Yeah, I think this was one I just kind of threw in, hoping for, kind of adding to the order, but definitely has some issues on the edges. You can see both corners are creased. The centering's way off on almost a miscut. So probably lucked out that one actually got a 4. All right. Next up, we're going to have this should be the 1969 Topps National League RBI leaders. This one I like because it has Santo and Williams both featured on the card, but definitely not the best grade. You could just see on the back here, both top corners have dings and creases. And it comes back a very good 3, PSA VG3. So, yeah. And Willie McCovey's on this one too, so quite the lineup here. And that's kind of one of the things that appeals to me on this card. And it looks great too with the red background, the red and white all over the card. Looks good in a PSA slab. So, trying to find the positives on this one because it got a pretty rough grade. All right, coming up next. Now, this card is a pretty popular card, well known from the 1960s. Very prominent card called the Champs. This is from 1967 Topps. This has got both Brooks Robinson and Frank Robinson, as well as Hank Bauer. So this card can have some value in a high grade, but I don't think it's going to have a high value today because this one comes back it came back an X-Mint 6, so PSA 6 is not bad. I'll take that. Centering isn't bad either. It's probably more on the registration side. The colors look a little off. Maybe that might have something to do with it, but still, I'm actually quite surprised this one got a 6. All right. Next up, we're going to have a 1967 Deacon Jones. Probably one of the most feared defenders of his era. And this is from the Philadelphia series. I'm not sure what I'm going to expect here. It definitely has some centering issues on the back. So again, mid-grade. That's what I'm hoping for. And it actually comes back a near mint 8. That's excellent. Yeah, the front actually looks pretty solid. Color's good. This card is and really Deacon Jones, extremely undervalued. So I'm looking to hold on to this, for quite a while. I don't expect, prices necessarily to jump up on him, but just very undervalued for the player that he was, and really the Hall of Fame career that he had. All right, now we're going to throw in a little curveball here. I graded a couple Beatles cards since they were such a big part of the 1960s. I had a couple of these laying around, so I thought we'd throw these in the order. The first one up is a 1964 Hard Day's Night from the Beatles movie. Again, hoping for just a mid-grade or higher. And it actually comes back a near mint 7. That's great. I think they called this one, yeah. So Paul McCartney holds a clipboard on movie set. Thought this one looked pretty well centered. I have a few of these. This is one of the better ones that I had. Very cool. Not particularly valuable, but nice piece of pop culture from the 1960s. And keeping on with the same theme, we have another Beatles card. This is from a different set. 1964 Beatles Color. I like this card because it shows all of the band together playing. And it looked pretty well centered. Let's see what we get here. And this one comes back, okay, and PSA 6. Yeah, I just thought this card looked nice. Again, was one of the better quality ones that I had. Very cool. All right, and moving on. Next up, we have the 1967 Topps Checklist. I thought this one looked pretty good, and it has Willie Mays on it. So, again, not particularly valuable, but it is a significant card in that set for that year because it has one of the greatest of all time. And it comes back, oh, wow, a near mint 8. That's great. Did not expect that. Pretty well centered, as well as the edges and corners look pretty good. Very cool. And none of the boxes are checked on the checklist, like a lot of them are. So, good one to have. All right, so some nice surprises in this order. Couple grades a little higher than I had expected, so that's nice to see. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and throw these guys on a stand here. Grab a couple of these for the higher graded cards. Very nice. And then we saved one spot for one more card. Last but not least, this card is probably the most valuable, but it's not the value that's necessarily important here. It's the story behind this card. When I first got into the hobby as a young kid, I always talked about how much I enjoyed collecting, baseball cards. I used to go around telling all my friends and family, like, I love collecting baseball cards, and sometimes they'd get me packs or whatever. But when my uncle found out how much I was into cards, when I went over to his house, he had pulled out all of his collection from the 1950s and 60s that he collected as a kid. He had them all in binders and showed me all of his collection. And I didn't know anything about the players of that era, but it was really cool to see how much he was into cards when he was a kid as well, and we kind of shared that moment together. And what was really cool about it, and this card I'll always keep with me, is he gifted me this card, and it's an awesome card because he's a White Sox fan, and I was a Cubs fan, so he gave me this Ernie Banks Power Plus with Hank Aaron from 1963. Had always been my prized possession of my collection as a kid. And it comes back a X-Mint 5, so PSA 5, hey, not too shabby. Still is probably one of the best cards in my collection. So regardless of the grade, I'm happy to have this one in my collection, and it means a lot to me, and really that's what trading cards and this hobby is about. You hear a lot of investment talk, and definitely the hobby has profited from that and has become very popular because of that, but at the same time, I don't really think you can truly enjoy this hobby unless you've got some stories like that to really appreciate, the trading cards and the hobby as a whole. So just my take on it. I'm so glad to have you guys spend some time with me over the holidays. I wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I hope to see you back again here real soon. Take care, everybody.